Once upon a time, there was a shepherd who lived in a small village on the edge of a dark forest. He was a kind and gentle soul, and he loved nothing more than spending his days tending to his flock of sheep. One day, the shepherd was leading his sheep through the forest when he came across a woodcutter. The woodcutter was a tall and burly man, with a thick beard and a gruff voice. He was busy chopping down a tree, and he didn't seem to notice the shepherd or his sheep. The shepherd greeted the woodcutter, but the woodcutter just grunted in reply. He didn't seem interested in talking to the shepherd, so the shepherd decided to leave him alone. The shepherd and his sheep continued on their way, and soon they came to a river. The river was wide and fast-moving, and the shepherd knew that it would be difficult to cross. He looked around for a way to get his sheep across the river, but there was no bridge in sight. Just then, the shepherd heard a noise. He turned around and saw a pack of wolves approaching. The wolves were hungry, and they were looking for a meal. The shepherd knew that he had to do something to protect his sheep. He quickly gathered the sheep together and led them to the river. He knew that the wolves would not be able to cross the river, so he hoped that they would give up and go away. The wolves followed the shepherd and his sheep to the river, but they stopped when they reached the edge of the water. They looked at the river for a moment, and then they turned and ran away. The shepherd was relieved that the wolves had gone away. He led his sheep across the river and continued on his way. As the shepherd and his sheep were walking through the forest, they came across a beautiful girl. The girl was sitting on a rock, crying. The shepherd asked the girl what was wrong, and she told him that she had lost her way. She said that she had been walking through the forest for hours, and she was scared. The shepherd offered to help the girl find her way back to her village. The girl gratefully accepted his help, and they set off together. The shepherd and the girl walked through the forest for a long time. They talked and laughed, and the shepherd soon realized that the girl was very kind and funny. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest. The girl's village was just in sight, and she thanked the shepherd for his help. The shepherd smiled and said, "You're welcome. I'm glad I could help." The shepherd watched as the girl walked away, and he felt a pang of sadness. He had enjoyed spending time with her, and he wished that he could see her again. The shepherd continued on his way, and soon he came to a tall tree. The tree was covered in gold, and the shepherd knew that it was a magical tree. The shepherd reached out and touched the tree, and he felt a surge of energy flow through him. He suddenly felt stronger and more confident. The shepherd knew that he had found something special. He decided to take a piece of the gold with him, so that he could remember his adventure. The shepherd left the forest and returned to his village. He told his friends and family about his adventures, and they were all amazed. The shepherd lived a long and happy life. He never forgot the beautiful girl he met in the forest, and he always cherished the piece of gold he had found. What is the setting of the story? Who are the main characters in the story? What is the conflict in the story? How is the conflict resolved? What is the theme of the story? What are some nitty-gritty details in the story? What are some noisy moments in the story? Here are the answers to the questions. The story is set in a small village on the edge of a dark forest. The main characters in the story are the shepherd, the woodcutter, the wolves, the beautiful girl, and the tall tree. The conflict in the story is between the shepherd and the wolves. The wolves want to eat the shepherd's sheep, but the shepherd must protect them. The conflict is resolved when the shepherd leads his sheep across the river. The wolves are afraid of the river and they run away. The theme of the story is that kindness and compassion can overcome even the most dangerous obstacles. The shepherd is kind and compassionate to the girl, even though he doesn't know her. He helps her find her way back to her village, even though it means putting himself in danger. In the end, his kindness is rewarded, and he is able to protect his sheep and find a magical tree. Some nitty-gritty details in the story include the fact that the shepherd is kind and gentle, the woodcutter is tall and burly, the wolves are hungry and dangerous, the beautiful girl is lost and scared, and the tall tree is covered in gold. Some noisy moments in the story include the sound of the river rushing, the sound of the wolves howling, and the sound of the woodcutter chopping down trees.